Some days she believed. She woke up feeling strong, convinced that God was working, even if she couldn't see it. She prayed with confidence, quoted scriptures, and told herself, "This season has a purpose." Miriam was a believer. She prayed, not only when things were hard, but when they were quiet. She went to church faithfully, even on Sundays when getting out of bed felt like a battle. She lifted her hands in worship, sang songs about God's faithfulness, and whispered amen to sermons about waiting and trusting His timing. She attended fellowship meetings. She listened as others shared testimonies of breakthrough. She smiled, nodded, and agreed that God was good. But sometimes, when she walked home afterward, the words felt heavier than they sounded. Because other days, faith felt like pretending. She was living in the space between promise and reality, between what God had said and what her life looked like. At first, she was waiting on many things: direction, stability, clarity. She told herself it was just a season. But slowly, the waiting narrowed, until everything became about one thing: a job. She fasted. She prayed specific prayers. She asked church friends to agree with her. And when they told her, "God will surely come through," she wanted to believe them. One minute, Miriam felt encouraged. The next, she was tired of encouragement. Tired of hearing, "Just wait on God." Tired of being reminded that delay is not denial. Tired of being strong for everyone else while her own faith felt thin. Every prayer began to sound the same. "God, I just need a job." God's silence wasn't peaceful. It was loud. It followed her into the night, sat beside her in the quiet, pressed against her chest when she tried to sleep. Every morning, she reached for her phone, not to pray, not to breathe, but to check her email. Still nothing. There were nights Miriam prayed boldly. "Lord, I trust you. I know you're in control." And there were nights she whispered through tears, "God, did you forget me?" She hated herself for thinking it. She knew the scriptures. She knew the sermons. She knew what she should believe. But knowing didn't make the silence go away. Everyone else's life seemed to be moving forward. Marriages, jobs, testimonies shared at church. And here she was, still explaining why she was waiting, still praying, still hoping, still hearing nothing. She stopped asking when God would answer. She started asking if He ever would. One afternoon, after another rejection email, Miriam closed her laptop. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, empty. And in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "God, this one thing is taking everything from me." For the first time, she wasn't asking for the job. She was admitting the cost of waiting, how it had drained her joy, how it had narrowed her faith, how it had made her forget everything God was still doing. She hadn't noticed how God had been sustaining her through days she shouldn't have survived, how strength came when it made no sense, how peace showed up uninvited. Waiting on the job had made everything else invisible. The unanswered prayer had become louder than God Himself. Later that day, Miriam stepped out to clear her head. On her way home, she noticed a woman struggling with heavy bags, frustration written all over her face. Normally, Miriam would have walked past, lost in her own thoughts. But something made her stop. She helped her. They talked briefly. Nothing special. Before leaving, Miriam did something small, almost instinctive. She whispered a quiet prayer, not for herself, but for the woman. "God, please help her. You see her." Then she walked away. No expectations. No hope attached. Just obedience. That night, Miriam didn't pray for the job. She was too tired. All she said was, "God, I'm still here." Days passed. Then weeks. Still no email. Still silence. But something inside her had shifted. She was no longer chasing God through an outcome. She was learning how to stay, even without answers. Then one afternoon her phone rang. An unfamiliar number. She almost ignored it, but she answered. "You may not remember me, but we met recently. I mentioned your background to someone I know. They're hiring, and they asked for you. Miriam couldn't speak, because the door didn't open where she had been knocking. It opened where she had served. When the offer finally came, Miriam didn't sit in quiet reflection. She broke. Not from pain, from relief, from gratitude, from the overwhelming realization that God had not forgotten her, not for a single second. She covered her mouth as the words sank in. The position, the salary, the benefits, the stability. It was better than the one she had cried over, better than the one she thought she needed, better than what she had imagined in her most hopeful prayers. And suddenly, every tear made sense. She fell to her knees in her small apartment, the same place she had whispered, "God, did you forget me?" Now she was saying, "Lord, you remembered me." She thanked God for the closed doors, for the delays, for the silence she misunderstood, for sustaining her when she was running on empty. Because even when she had started losing hope, God had not. Even when she stopped believing the email would come, God was preparing something greater. He didn't just answer her prayer. He redeemed the years she served in church when no one saw, the years she showed up to fellowship when she felt behind, the years she kept giving, kept trusting, kept praying, even when nothing moved. God did not waste her obedience. He rewarded it, not only with a good job, but with proof. Proof that silence is not abandonment. Proof that delay is not denial. Proof that when God promises, He fulfills. And this time, Miriam didn't just rejoice quietly. She glorified Him. She told everyone who would listen, "I almost gave up, but God didn't give up on me." Because the blessing wasn't just provision. It was restoration. And the job she received wasn't just income. It was evidence that God keeps His word. If this story has encouraged you, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.